This is the Make Planning Make Sense podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Zimmerman, and I'm a director at Centro. My guest today is Helen Walker, Head of Heritage and Associate at Bowman Riley. Helen lets us in on a pleasant little heritage hack that can spare folks a bit of time, expense, and grief. Along the way, we touch on the perils of the, quote, only grade 2 mindset and the risk of losing the living knowledge of the building crafts. If you like today's episode, share it with your fellow planimals, and please do follow the show. And remember, we're ultimately here for you. Whenever you have a complex project that needs excellent planners on the team, please get in touch. Find us on LinkedIn and stay in touch on Instagram, X, and Blue Sky at MPMS Podcast. Here's my conversation with Helen Walker. Helen Walker, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
We always like to start off with who you are and how you came to your role.
Okay, so I am a conservation architect, which means I'm accredited with RIBA, so the Royal Institute of British Architects. I started my career in conservation architecture possibly about 2002, 2003, when I first worked on my first heritage asset or first historic building. And it was really by chance that I worked on this building. But I just found it so interesting to work on an existing building and heritage asset. And the thing that I found so great was actually researching the human history behind the building, if you like. So not just the building itself, but finding out who used to live there and everything. So that really piqued my interest. And that kind of takes me into why I got into architecture in the first place. I was first interested in archaeology because I was interested in human stories, basically, and the history of humans and the history of their stories. And I went on an exchange visit to Massachusetts, and I met this fantastic art teacher who got me into architecture. So from then, I looked into that as a career. But my first kind of career choice was actually an archaeologist. So it was really quite a nice fit for me to go from architecture to conservation architecture, combined both of my interests.
There's a nice sort of continuation to it, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're now the head of heritage and an associate at Bowman Riley.
Yes. So I joined Bowman Riley in 2019, and I had just come from Purcell in Manchester, where I was working on the Manchester Town Hall. And it was a fantastic experience and a brilliant project to work on for a great company. But I wanted to be closer to home. I was travelling probably an hour and a half there and back.
Fair.
So I looked at Bowman Riley. They were interested in starting more of a heritage sector within the company.
Right.
And I joined with the view to set up a heritage sector within Bowman Riley.
That's fantastic. We'll talk a bit today about how heritage and planning intersect, as much as I'd like to talk about how heritage, archaeology, and anthropological history intersect. But we've talked before on the podcast about how heritage does fit in under the current sort of fascisculus of paragraphs in the MPPF. And we've talked before on the podcast about how that is confirmed through case law to be a correct approach and meant to be a comfort. We've also talked about how even practitioners in heritage sometimes tend to miss opportunities to really interrogate a proposal or to really interrogate the significance of an asset. And that tends to lead to some sort of prickly impasses in communication. But we were speaking earlier about a really helpful tool to make sure that the planning approach to heritage is proportionate to the nature of the works. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so really interestingly, when I first got introduced to the idea of planning, and heritage planning in particular, was when I worked at Woodhall Planning and Conservation. And I was quite fascinated about the MPPF, believe it or not, and its various rules and regulations.
Never before been said, actually.
No. Well, I think because I'm a conservation architect, I like to work within rules and boundaries. If so, with an existing building, you're working with an existing template. And to me, the MPPF is like the template for planning. So if you've got a heritage asset, there's obviously the listed building consent, application route for anywhere where you are making a change to a heritage asset. That is potentially going to affect the significance of that heritage asset.
Yeah.
So you have to then seek consent. But interestingly, part of the Planning and Listed Building and Conservation Areas Act 1990...
Part of the Bible, yes.
Yes.
A book of the Bible.
Not to be too technical, but Section 7, Paragraph 1 of 1990, the Act, we'll call it, it actually says, and I've got a little transcript here, but it says, subject to the following provisions of the Act, no person shall execute or cause to be executed any works for the demolition of a listed building, for its alteration or extension in any manner which would affect its character as a building of special architectural or historic interest, unless the works are authorised.
Yes.
So that gives you the template for what you have to do to seek LBC. But taken in the other way, it also gives you the template for what you don't have to submit an application for.
So for instances where it's
It's
readily
not gonna-
apparent that it's
Yeah.
not going to be a proposed set of works that would affect the significance of the asset.
Exactly. This paragraph within the Act actually opens the door to alternative routes for seeking permission. We work with a number of clients who might be organisations that it's really key that they have all the paperwork in place so that if they do any works to a listed building, they've got the paperwork in place to say that it was lawful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because obviously, as we know, if you do unauthorised works to a listed building, it's a criminal offence to varying degrees.
Yeah.
So I worked with a number of organisations to find a way round the protracted LBC process for works that I knew weren't going to affect the significance of the heritage asset.
Yeah.
Now, that might be works that cover repair, like-for-like repair, for example, maintenance to a listed building, but it also covers things like alteration to modern elements of that building.
Yeah.
So things that don't contribute to the significance. So one of our clients at Bowman Riley was a bank, and they were wanting to do a series of alterations to their banking halls. And a lot of the alterations were to bring it up to modern day standards and to install iPads and things like that, so that to make it a bit more of an interactive experience going to the bank. Now, when they looked, yeah,
No,
less
which
people,
is sorry.
more tech interaction almost.
We're not a regular bank, we're a fun bank.
Yeah.
But
And
also fair. You
Yeah.
know, when was this?
This was probably 2019, 2020 time.
Okay, yeah.
So it was a time when I think the banks were trying to respond to the fact that a lot of people do online banking
Yeah.
and not necessarily face-to-face. But some people do like to come into the bank and see people
Yeah.
and then potentially be able to do stuff online or look at things on the tablet. It was trying to create that middle ground between face-to-face banking and at-home internet banking,
Yeah.
in effect. So I had a chat with them and they said, oh, we've got about 10, 15 banks that are all listed. And we're wanting to do these refits to the buildings, to these banking halls. So they said, oh, that's 10, 15 LBC applications. And I thought, well, I looked at the scope of the works and I said, I don't really think this requires an LBC.
Yeah.
Again, back to the Section 7, Paragraph 1 of the Act, the works wouldn't affect the character of the building or the special interest of the building,
Yeah.
because it was only affecting modern tables, modern cashier desks, that sort of thing. So we looked at the potential for doing a certificate of lawfulness for proposed works to a listed building,
Yeah.
which isn't a very snappy title.
The word workaround was much more content friendly. Yeah.
Yes. So I call it a COL, so a certificate of lawfulness. So we looked into doing a COL, basically, for this client, and they found it a quicker process.
Yeah.
They found that it was a quicker determination period, because when you submit a certificate of lawfulness or a COL, they don't have to go out to consultation with that application. Really, all you're doing is asking them to confirm that you don't need listed building consent. And the turnaround is a bit like delegated powers in a way, depending on how busy the authority is and how stretched the authority is, because I know a lot of them are.
Yeah.
is about 4 to 6 weeks, normally about 6 weeks. So it means that you're not having to get all the upfront documents prepared as well that you might do with a listed building consent application. You literally just have to submit a location plan and some photographs of the works or an overview of the works. And we normally submit a statement of significance to show that the works aren't going to affect the significance.
Yeah.
Because we've done our homework already. We know that the significance is associated with X, Y, Z, and we're altering ABC. So it's not going to be a problem.
It's a really helpful pathway, I think, not least of all because you're still doing that work up front in terms of making sure that you're putting in that evidence that gives the decision maker the comfort that it has been professionally assessed, it is understood, and where the significance in a listed building consent application might be viewed differently by different parties. For a COL, as we're calling, I like that.
COL.
You can say, come on, we know this. Yeah, really helpful.
Where we absolutely know, if that is a modern partition, for example, and you're wanting to put an opening through that modern partition, it's a really good vehicle for doing things like that. So you can do works on it. You just have to prove that it's not going to affect the significance of that heritage asset. So they found it very useful. And I recently met a conservation officer on site last week, funnily enough, because I've recently put in a call for a project where they're wanting to do repairs to a heritage asset. And they're also wanting to do like-for-like repairs. So back to this maintenance idea. So we submitted a call, and I think some authorities are slightly, not confused, but they see this call coming because they possibly don't get that many of them.
The word workaround comes back to mind, which is only to say in this context, it is not a well-worn path. People tend to think, okay, well, you'll need full planning permission and an LBC. And I could imagine that an officer might think, the hell is this? Yeah. So what happened?
Yes. So after a few kind of exchanges of email, the case officer sent me an email back and said, well, I think we might need to include this on an LBC. So I sent an email back to him quoting Section 7, Chapter 1 of the Act.
Oops.
Oh, God.
But it just is what it is, right? It's
it is.
The statutory basis of all the work.
Yeah. And basically saying, so could you let me know what part of the significance of this heritage asset is going to be affected by these works? And we'll submit an LBC because I don't think it's going to affect the significance. And he responded and went, okay, so I'm going to get a conservation officer to look at this. So the knee-jerk reaction was, even from the planning team, you need to submit an LBC. And with a bit of challenge, they then put it through to the conservation officer. We eventually met on site, and I had a chat to the conservation officer, and I said, I'm guessing you don't see many of these. And he said, yeah, we don't see that many of them, but thank you very much, because it's taken some of the workload off us.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
Thank you. And it was a validation that we wanted in a way. I've been saying this for ages, that it'll reduce the strain on local planning authorities. But to actually hear it from a conservation officer was really good. I think more people could use this as a vehicle to do work to their listed buildings, primarily repair work, maintenance work, and work that isn't going to affect the significance of the building. So work to modern elements of that building. Now, there is a bit of a caveat, if you like.
Every good story has a twist,
Every good story has a twist. So in terms of like-for-like repairs and like-for-like replacements, if you like, I think it depends on, well, I know it depends on the amount of like-for-like replacement you're doing. So, for example, take a roof and you're wanting to replace, say, 10% of the slates on that roof. Like-for-like, you're not going to put any insulation, any membranes. You're just going to replace those slates. That could fall under a COL. But if you were going to strip the whole roof and replace the whole roof on a like-for-like, then they could require an LBC. Because, for example, on that roof, there could be diminishing slates. So you might not replicate it exactly. So you might not replicate those diminishing slates. So that could have the potential to impact the significance of that heritage asset.
God forbid.
God forbid.
Don't replicate the diminishing slates.
Yep.
And that's not to poo-poo the idea
No.
the importance of historic fabric, but also I'm hoping that folks listening to this hear our smiles, because it's the most administrative, statutory kind of workaround, but in the world of planning and heritage, it's just like a fun little scandal that there's this thing that's not used often enough by any means.
No.
Part of what I think is interesting from my perspective as a planner is the happiness I see you expressing that you don't necessarily have to talk to Historic England every time. Mm-hmm. And also then the happiness that the officer is expressing for that same thing. Of course, caveats, conditions. Mm-hmm. Historic England does really important work, and Absolutely. They do a lot of work. They have a really significant purview. Mm-hmm. Also, it speaks, I think, a bit to the siloed nature of planning, where if you talk to the biodiversity and sustainability consultancy, they're going to have issues about biodiversity. If you talk to Historic England, oh, guys, the heritage people have heritage comments, right?
Yep.
And that's to say, it's a commentary on the structure of the process. Mm-hmm. Certainly nothing against Historic England specifically.
No. And I think Historic England are under pressure as well.
Yeah.
Just the same as local planning authorities. They don't want to have to be consulted on things that they don't need to comment on either in that way.
Yeah.
It works from both Historic England perspective and local planning authority perspective.
Absolutely.
But I think one of the key things to do when you do submit, and if you do submit a COL, is to make sure that you get that right advice at the start, and that you can actually give the local planning authority comfort that you've got the right advice, that it's not going to affect the listed building status.
Yeah.
Because I know that on this project that I'm just working on, where I met with the conservation officer, we started the conversation with him saying, well, maybe some of these aren't certificate of lawfulness, or they're not correct for a certificate of lawfulness, or they're doing too much for a certificate of lawfulness.
Yeah.
But by the end of it, he was satisfied that I knew what I was talking about. I was doing the best for the building, and I understood that it wasn't going to affect the significance. And I was taking the right steps in order to do that. Yeah. And really interestingly, at the end of this meeting that we had on site, and we were going through and looking at all these elements, the splice repairs to the doors, the replacement sills, stone sills, we started talking about assessing mortar. And he's working on a project at the moment, and he said, oh, Helen, I just wish we had you on this project because we're having a bit of a nightmare. And I think that's one of the things that I think from his perspective, he was saying that a lot of people don't necessarily do that upfront work to understand the building, doing assessments of the mortar, for example, to understand the constituents, so that whatever mortar you propose isn't going to harm that heritage asset. So I think it's, again, just expressing the need to get heritage involved earlier.
Yeah.
So that they can really feed into that process and make it worthwhile, and give the confidence to the local planning authority that you've got the right people on board.
I think that's so important as well. And we've talked before about how it's making sure everything is evidenced, not leaving it to put that burden on the officer to figure something out.
Yeah.
Evidence exactly what you mean, because they are busy. Mm-hmm. They are receiving an application and they haven't been to site yet. So they're going to try to figure out what's going on. And absent that comprehensive evidence, they're going to start thinking of holes in that and worrying about the worst possible kind of reason that's not been scrutinized or evidenced.
I believe under the NPPF, the thing I think is sometimes missed is that when you make an application for listed building consent, you have to give enough information to the local planning authority for them to be able to assess the harm or the impact and the significance. So you have to give them enough information for them to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You're assessing the significance, but you're doing it so that they can then take that information and tell you if it's going to be harmful. But it has to be balanced as well. Yeah. So you don't want to give them a 20-page diatribe because you are changing a door on a grade 2 listed building. You go into the significance of that door and its surroundings and the setting, possibly if it's in a conservation area.
Yeah.
you don't necessarily start to go into the significance of the roof trusses if you're not altering them.
It also speaks to this phenomenon that I really do try to keep in mind in the practice of my work. We think that we're also the good guys, right? You know, we would definitely share this ethos that you're expressing, that you've got to do it right. You need to be detail oriented. It needs to be expertly assessed and evidenced. And I can hardly blame an officer in that first interaction being
a bit wary,
a bit skeptical, a bit burned out as well.
Yeah.
Over the course of our work, we do tend to give them that comfort that we're the goodies as well.
Yeah.
We might not agree, but we're doing this right. I just can't imagine some of the sort of Yahoo applications that they must get and then have a fight about.
No.
Exhausting.
As part of my work, when I'm researching historic buildings, I go over previous applications and say, well, this application was submitted in this date and this date. And you look over previous applications. And the amount of time I have seen heritage statements that just reiterate the list description. It's unbelievable. It's like, what? It's a page. It's a page. How was that submitted?
No formatting, no letterhead, just
a page of the historic England description. And the thing that people don't necessarily understand is that historic England description is just so you can identify the building.
Yeah.
Unless it's an enhanced description that goes into the significance.
Harp. I'm going to include like a harp sound here.
Enhanced
description.
List description. But it's primarily used just to identify the building.
Yeah.
So the amount of times I've heard people say, oh, it's only grade 2, so it's just the outside that's listed.
Okay. So we should put a trigger warning on this episode because only grade 2 is just a surefire way to make an enemy.
Just
don't talk like that. And then also, I do admit that the grading system between heritage assets is sensible. I see why it's done that way. But then when you're having these conversations with local authority, yes, a grade 1 listed asset is going to be of greater historic significance, but that does not trivialize the other two.
No.
At all. And I've also seen the grades weaponized theatrically. Like, it's grade 1. And then, and then the whole stage goes black. Right?
Yes.
But it's just really a conceptual framework. And it's about giving pause and giving a bit of reverence to the importance of these things. But whether it's 1, 2-star or 2, you're going to go through the process and you really have to, full stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of the times I might deal with clients and the clients will say to me, so we've got this grade 2 listed building and you might be on site with them and they'll say, but that's not listed, is it? And you stood inside the building, but that's not listed, is it? And that's not listed. And you kind of say, well, until we submit a listed building consent and tell them it's not of significance, yes, it's all listed.
It is all listed.
Yes.
Yeah. It happens all the time. Somebody would say, oh, only the facade is listed.
Yeah.
No, the entire building and its cartilage is listed.
Yes.
Maybe only the facade is of significance.
Yes.
But totally different terminology with a very different meaning.
Yeah, and it takes us back to this idea of this COL. Because yes, that
C-U-L-L.
no.
C-O-L everyone. Yeah.
COL. So, not COL. It takes us back to this idea of this certificate of lawfulness. Because inside, there might be a wall that isn't of significance.
Yeah.
But you need to prove to the local planning authority that it isn't. And therefore, if you make a hole in it, you're not going to harm the significance of that heritage asset.
Yeah.
Because historic buildings, I guess it's reasonably complex about how you assess them, but there is a very set framework for assessing those historic buildings.
Yeah.
There is the archaeological, if you like, significance, or the interest, they call it. Then there's the architectural and aesthetic, and then there's the historic.
Yeah.
And I think you've had someone on your podcast previously talking about how you assess significance.
Yes, Shout out to Laurie Hancock at Iceni, episodes 5 and 6 of season 1. And shout out to Esther Robinson Wild and Darcy Kerr of Robinson Wild, season 1, episode 17. And they're some of my favorite episodes, actually, because planning is already high drama, right? Viability and affordable housing and townscape impact and neighbor comments. And then heritage is like the high art of it.
And And I think you get people who work in heritage who are very passionate about heritage as well.
Yeah.
Most people you talk to in the heritage sector are very passionate about what they do, which is great, which is really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I won't go into too much information on how you assess significance, but it is a very layered process. And I always use the example of, say, John Lennon's house. It's not listed for the stone, or it's not listed for its decorative detail. It's listed because of the fact that it's got historic associative interest with a cultural icon, if you like.
Laurie Hancock mentioned the Volusia beacons at the Abbey Road crossing, which are not the original beacons, nor are they in the original location, but the significance of them as a cultural and artistic artifact outlive the very fabric of the crossing itself. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we don't just deal with listed buildings, we deal with heritage assets. And those assets can be bollards, they can be buildings, or they can be parks and gardens, they can be wrecks, they can be
all sorts of,
anything.
Yeah.
And I think it's always interesting. I do a CPD at work where I talk about the different types of heritage asset. And I recently did a lecture at Leeds Beckett University, and we talked about heritage assets. And I was saying, right, name me heritage assets. And obviously a few hands went up: listed buildings, scheduled monuments, but then there's protected wreck sites. There's so many other heritage assets. It's not just buildings. It's the buildings and also their setting as well that you have to think about, and the conservation areas. But yes, so very complex.
We'll be right back. At Centro, our tailored approach turns potential into planning permission for major development projects nationwide. Every project is unique, and our analytical and persuasive approach delivers the best possible results for our clients. Our team's diverse insights are essential to creative problem solving, and together, we're proud to plan for a sustainable future. Get in touch if we can help. Find us on LinkedIn and online at centroplan.co.uk. The setting one is really tricky because not only do you need to understand the significance of the asset, but then also the manner in which the setting may contribute to the significance or the ability to appreciate the significance.
Yes.
There's so much nuance in that, and I think sometimes that gets lost. And to be honest, I think quite often that gets lost.
Yeah.
And new next to old is just in the bin. No, it's harmful. And it's okay, but why? Right. Mm-hmm. And there's two steps in that process of understanding whether it could be harmful. And in something that's really important and really valuable as a national cultural issue, that sometimes I think there's a nervousness, and absent that really forensic interrogation, then it's just safer to say, I think that might be harmful.
Yeah. Historic England have a really good set of publications on their website. And one of them is along the lines of understanding the setting of heritage assets. So how to assess the setting.
Yeah.
And they go through very clear steps about how to understand the significance of the asset. You then understand the significance of the setting to that asset. And then that enables you to understand if what you're doing within the setting is going to harm the significance of the asset.
Which is exactly the process. That's perfect.
Yeah.
It's also trying to create some clarity and structure around what's actually quite a finicky and fussy statutory basis. Mm-hmm. Who doesn't love a bit of additional guidance?
I love guidance, especially from Historic England. It's great. But no,
Shout out Historic England.
Shout out Historic England. They do produce a lot of publications that are just really simple and easy to understand. Yeah. And they break it down in such a way that it makes it more digestible, and you can appreciate what they're trying to say and how they're trying to. Don't just tell you to do it, they tell you why and how. So I find their guides really useful. And there's one that I use a lot, which is the repair and conservation of historic windows. And they go into how to repair and conserve windows. Yeah. But they take you through the history of the window as well. So from where it started to the Yorkshire sliding sashes to the vertical sliding sashes. And windows are a whole podcast episode on their own. Trust me.
Oh, it's a national fixation. And I
love window.
I love a good window. We actually have really cool historic windows in our offices as well. Like single pane, but like thick, and also cool fixtures and fittings and these sort of offset swinging frames. It's like, they're really cool, but also it's fucking cold in here in the winter if the heat's not running the whole time. I always think windows in the heritage context and the social and environmental responsibilities we have around letting people stay warm without breaking the bank and climate change is still an unsolved thing.
Yeah.
Unless you're rich. If you're rich, then like, well, you just do whatever, is necessary to get that double glazing in. But fuck, it's expensive.
I think
and it's unrealistic to expect that or to leave that to the burden of a lot of homeowners or occupants.
Yeah. And I think with windows, there are so many solutions out there. So there are leaving it as it is. Some of the advice is to stop.
Option 1, do nothing.
Option 1, hang really heavy curtains, which I can understand.
Also true, yeah.
Because it does stop the draft coming in and they are an insulant. But unfortunately, they're not a permanent fixture. You can take the curtains away, so it doesn't really conform to building regs. But things like doing secondary glazing. I've just been at the conservation conference, the CIOB conservation conference today, and Selector Glazer there talking about the different options for windows, and they were talking about secondary glazing and how it is a really good option. And yes, it is.
Agreed.
But I think there's many ways to skin a cat, I think is the phrase. So one solution that's right for one building isn't going to be right for another. And you have to take each situation on its own merits.
Yeah.
So we did some work at the George Hotel in Huddersfield.
Shout out George Hotel.
So my role to start with was as part of the has-funded repair works to the George Hotel under the Station Gateway project. So there was the George Hotel, which has been pretty much empty since 2013. And it needed a new life. So many people had come in and tried to regenerate it and bring it back into use, and nobody had really got there properly. Possibly they couldn't make it stack up, couldn't make it work. So by the time we got involved in 2020, 21, Kirklees Council had purchased the site. So we were appointed by the council, and our remit was to come in and look at the external fabric of the building. So look at the masonry, look at the windows, and work with the surveyor to look at the roof as well. We came in there, and again, just talking about windows, they were sliding sash windows, and they'd had secondary glazing put in. But the secondary glazing had been positioned quite a long way away from the window. Sometimes the sliding sash bars didn't quite match up, and it just didn't look right. It had been done, but it hadn't been done very well, if you like. So we came in and really quite took it back to basics and thought, how do we want to improve the energy efficiency of these windows? And we thought about doing secondary glazing again and putting it right next to the window, putting it in the staff bead and all these sorts of things. But then I thought, well, we looked at the glass. We found that a lot of the glass was modern. We looked at the beading. We looked at the deglazing bars. And we determined that actually it could take a slimline double glazed unit. And in that way, we could keep the windows operating as they historically had done without secondary glazing. Kirklees Council has a climate emergency. We obviously needed to upgrade these historic windows.
Kirklees, we all do, babe. Like...
all do now. I mean, this is a few years ago, but
Same.
Definitely all do now. So... we needed to upgrade these windows in a way that wasn't going to harm the significance. And we had a number of discussions with Historic England and with the local planning authority, and we decided to upgrade them by just changing the glass rather than doing the secondary glazing. Now, in another project we're actually doing the secondary glazing because these are, now I believe they are 17th century windows. So really old, really important.
That's
really
the 1600s for everybody who doesn't count in centuries.
1600s, yeah.
Damn.
So really old. And they had their old glazing bars as well, which are really wide. So they were really important windows. So we decided to use secondary glazing because we can keep the fabric that's of importance intact, but also upgrade them to make them more energy efficient.
Yeah.
So, like I say, not one solution fits all.
Yeah.
You've got to take each site on its merit.
And it sounds like a friendly reminder to listeners who, if they're listening to this podcast, they probably know this already, but that like-for-like replacement is conservation area fine. It might be fine in a listed heritage asset situation.
Yep.
But sometimes like-for-like still isn't good enough, depending on the particular fabric that we're talking about.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
there are going to be some things that just really can't be manufactured again in any kind of realistic way.
Yeah, now interestingly, when I was on site with the conservation officer last week, he said that term like for like can be quite difficult because my idea of like for like might not be your idea of like for like. So, for example, if you were going to replace a glazing bar like for like, people might think it's just like for like appearance. So whenever we do the phrase like for like, we always say that it's like for like in terms of materials, in terms of composition, in terms of arrangement, or in terms of construction, or in terms of assembly. So yeah, that's really important when you're looking at like for like repairs.
Yeah.
You have to justify again this justification that it is going to be like for like.
It is much squishier than identical and of the same method and material.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We've been in situations, to be sure, in conservation areas where the fabric itself is not of identified historic significance. So like for like, but also can we go from like a lead frame to an aluminium frame? No. You're at application pending.
Not if you're going to go for a COL and you're doing like for like. That would be considered
It's only a positive contributor. Thank God.
Good. That's all right then. We were talking before about like for like in terms of the way it's assembled, the way it's put together. You do really need the correct people trained in how to assemble those windows in order to be able to do that. Skill shortage, basically, of those craftspeople to actually assemble those windows.
We were talking about this sort of craftsmanship and the value of masonry came up. Before the podcast, we were talking about the reconstruction of Notre Dame and how they went absolutely ham on the specificity. And they were lucky because they had all these historic plans and all this documentation. And so they were foresting wood from the same species in the same forest and using the same method for the carpentry. Yeah, exactly. And the whole world was like, oh, thank God, because it's such a global symbol of historic prominence.
Yeah.
And then there's been all of these great stories as well about how they've had to source masons from every corner of Europe and beyond to come together to complete this project. And I think it really does highlight this shift in how we build things. Even in South London, you'd have terraced houses that were made for maybe the comfortable working class, but the working class, but they're nice. And they have all of this decorative hand-carved stonework in the entranceways, and it's beautiful. I'm just thinking back to something that someone else in the sector said to me, that when they receive comments from the public, why can't we build this next building the way that this 19th century building is next to it? They had a really insightful answer, not particularly helpful to that neighbor, but the economic and social structures that allowed that kind of work to be available don't exist in the same way anymore.
No. And I think also any kind of development that's going next to something like that is of its time. And that displays the craftspersonship, if you like, at the time.
Nice.
Craftspersonship.
Be inclusive, I love
that. At the time. But the building next to it also needs to be of its time. And the building industry has really special qualities now that we need to be showing more of. So more innovation in how we use materials. So we worked on a Grade 1 listed building in York, and we were doing new build design next to this Grade 1 listed building. And really interestingly, Historic England turned around to us and said, this new build that you're building next to this historic building, we almost want it to be worthy of listing at some point in the future. So you need to think about what makes that building special now. How is it innovative? What's it doing? Is it using materials in a different way? Is it super sustainable? Is it thinking about those heritage values? Is it associated with a specific person? Whatever it might be, that potentially in the future that could be listed as well.
It would be great to see more of that, to be honest. We do need pathways to careers for masons because we do need to maintain and restore and repair and, alter our existing built heritage.
Yeah.
But it's a really lovely idea that we can think about what is worthy of listing a century from now.
Yes.
And for that worthy listing not to just be a replication of the technologies and the materials and the processes from the 17th and 18th and 19th centuries.
Yeah, it needs to be brought up to speed. It needs to be of its time.
Call to action.
Yes, definitely. When I first got into architecture, it just reminded me of a story that I kind of started because I was interested in archaeology. It kind of started me thinking, in 200 years' time, if people were digging up our buildings that we're designing now and building now, what would it say about us? If you think about that question, what do our buildings say about us as a society, as a community?
Yeah.
I just think that poses a really interesting question.
It's a brilliant question, and it's related to a broader built environment point that the built environment is a reflection of what we value and what we prioritize. And so in ye olde times, it was the church spires, right?
Yep.
And the palaces. That wasn't equitable, but it was pretty. Now, if we look at the roofscape of a city, if we look at the skyline, if we look at the places that are assertive in their presence, finance, not affordable housing, by the way. And I do think that's an important distinction. I think that cuts in a good way and a bad way. But finance, hotels, observation decks.
Well, I was walking along the Thames today, and what you've just said strikes a chord, really, because I was looking over the other side of the Thames, and I was looking at the Tower of London on one side. So you've got the bridge, then the Tower of London. And then to the left of that, the skyline just goes up in these skyscrapers. You see the Gherkin, you see all these huge towers, and you're looking at it going, right, that's the financial district. Because that's what we were trying to say in the time of the Tower of London was security and authority and almost that respect of power, if you like, potentially. But now you're looking at the modern day and we're respecting money, possibly, and authority, but in a different
Air quotes,
way.
possibly,
Possibly.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was a striking kind of comparison between then and now. And what we think about and what we want our buildings to portray then and what we want our buildings to portray now. So, but it's fascinating.
It's a great view as well. So you're between the old town hall and kind of EY, right?
Yes.
In what's it called, the Scoop or something? That sort of outdoor oval amphitheater arrangement. That is such a postcard view.
It is.
Of the city, capital C.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So... But I was going to the CIOB Conservation Conference, but at the conference, they were very much talking about the skill shortage within the industry and how to rectify that. And one of the things that I think is a problem is that young people aren't being told that conservation and heritage skills and the crafts associated with heritage buildings is a career, a potential career. And there was this lady there who was a stonemason, and she was talking about her career into stonemasonry. And she was saying that when she was at school, she loved working with her hands. She loved pottery. She loved all these things. And she didn't really know what she wanted to be in terms of what career she wanted to follow. And she was doing her A-levels. And she went to her careers advisor. And her careers advisor said, well, what are you interested in? She goes, well, I'm really interested in ceramics and working with my hands. So the careers advisor turned to her and said, I've got the perfect profession for you. Dentistry. And this lady went, because they work with ceramics.
Talk about a square peg in a round hole.
And she said, no, I want to be more artistic than that, more design flair. So even the careers advisor didn't necessarily know that there were other options.
And they just skipped over a fine arts career in ceramics and went straight to dentistry.
Yes. Yeah. Of course.
Past stonemasonry, past, wow.
everything to dentistry. And I think that is a problem with some schools, that they don't necessarily have the understanding of what careers are out there, potentially. Yeah. And I think that's our job to educate, just as much as it's their job to educate their pupils. It's our job to educate the educators in what potential careers are out there. And she's now doing stonemasonry and she loves it. She absolutely loves it. And I think stonemasonry is so interesting. We worked with a company called Mono Masonry on the George Hotel. And I went to go look around their workshops. And they said it's a fascinating art to take up, is stonemasonry. Yeah. Because you don't just have to have that artistic element. You have to have that mathematical brain as well to work out how you're going to take out the sections of stone, where you're going to take them. If you cut here, what does that affect here? And you almost have to plan it out mathematically before you can then release your artistic side to develop it. So yeah, there's so many careers out there for people who are more practical minded, who aren't necessarily, who like to work with their hands, and they're more practical. They want to be outside. They want to be doing stuff. Yeah. Then there's a massive shortage in heritage craftspeople. From lead work, there's a massive shortage in lead work, believe it or not, for heritage projects.
I can get that one though.
Yeah,
that's a dangerous material.
Yeah, but also proper working with lead. And some of our heritage buildings have got like vases made of lead.
Yeah, not to discourage anyone either, by the way. But
no, decorative elements that are made out of lead. Really interesting. So there's standard lead work, but then there's that extra element of being really artistic and decorative with these lead elements. So there's a real shortage of that. And I think there's a red list now of crafts that have we've stopped doing them in the United Kingdom. And one of them is, someone might correct me now. Someone might call in and say, I do gold leaf.
Oh my God.
If
you're listening to this and you're inspired to call in, please do.
And if you do make gold leaf, please tell me, because I want to know about you.
Listener comment. We'll connect you with that.
Yeah, please do. Because I understand that we can no longer make gold leaf in this country. We have to import it. Yeah. And if you think about all the heritage assets that we've got with gold leaf, Palace of Westminster, all these grade 1 listed buildings that that need gold leaf, from portrait frames to...
our girl Elizabeth Tower has all sorts of gold leaf on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of leaf.
That's a lot of leaf that has to all be imported. We do have... so that was on the list of endangered or extinct. So yeah, it's trying to get people back into this idea of working with heritage assets, because there's a lot of work out there to do. And I think someone said that if you can't see it, you can't be it. And that's the problem with a lot of students. They can't see someone being that heritage craft person, so there's no way they can be it, which is a real shame.
Yeah. I'm sitting here just listening with like such starry eyes, because there's such a really positive and romantic, with a lowercase r, notion that really connects with the physicality of a craft. And sitting at my laptop writing postury things all day, or friendly things, or just whatever it is, clearing an inbox just isn't going to have the same satisfaction of what the craft professions are famous for, which is that pride in creation.
Yeah. Absolutely. And one of the people that were talking at the conservation conference were the King's Foundation. And they do a program where they get a cohort of people who are already in the construction industry, but they might want to specialise in certain types of crafts. So it all depends on what type of craftspeople they get. Sometimes they might have 3 blacksmiths, and then they might have 1 mason and whoever else. Sometimes they might have no blacksmiths and all masons. They just don't know who they're going to get. But they have a fantastic program where they come in, they teach them about how to actually run a business as a heritage craftsperson. So not just about how to do it, but how to run a business from it and the pitfalls of it. If anybody is interested in getting into heritage crafts, then they should check out the King's Foundation. And there are other foundations that are promoting heritage crafts, and see if you can get involved in that. So, yeah.
That's so damn cool.
It is really cool.
Is this King's Foundation a la of the Poundbury vein?
So it is, it's the patron is actually King Charles. So, and it's held at
The big man himself?
Yes. So they hold it at Dumfries House, and they encourage the cohort to do the practical lessons, but also the lessons about finance, etc. And the crowning glory, if you like, at the end of the course is they actually design and make their own project. And if you go to Dumfries House...
If you just happen to be is it in Ayrshire?
Yes, it is.
Are you in Ayrshire and would like to see...
Absolutely. Well, they had
craft
230,000 visitors last year.
Amazing.
So yes, lots of people go. But yes, if you're in the area, please go check it out. And they have all these little projects scattered around the house in the gardens that each cohort has made. So it might be a little shed, or it might be a little watchtower, or it might be a little like loo block or something. And all the cohorts have made those little installations. So it's really quite interesting. But yes, check out the King's Foundation. But that was definitely something that was a big part of the conference, because there's no point in us conserving all these heritage assets if there's nobody to actually do the practical aspect of conservation.
Yeah. Many people involved who aren't drawn to the Ile-de-Cité, like global capital and national and international mourning.
Yes.
We just need people who can help with a hotel.
Yes. Definitely.
And everything in between.
Absolutely, 100%. So long as it's heritage related, I'm on board.
Samesies. I think that's a good place to end. Helen Walker of Bowman Riley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been really interesting and a nice little chat.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Make Planning Make Sense. Please do give the show a follow, and please share the show to keep the conversation going and the community growing. Find us on Instagram, X, and Blue Sky at MPMS Podcast, or write to us at podcast@centroplan.co.uk. Make Planning Make Sense is presented by Centro Planning Consultancy and recorded in beautiful London, England. Its executive producer is me, Aaron Zimmerman. Marketing and promotion by our colleague Reese Raymond. Graphic design by our colleague Mariam Malaxi. Music by Joseph McDade. From all of us here at Centro, thanks again for listening.